Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Tell Me About Your Jesus podcast. I'm Brian, and I'm here with Shane, and we're just two ordinary people talking about our extraordinary God. We hope what you hear today helps you see how God moves in our lives. Shane, over to you.
All right, guys. Well, I'm glad to have everybody here today. And today we're going to talk a little bit more about Brian and his journey and how he got here today and his walk with God. So start with, I think you said in the last episode you've pretty much been a follower of Christ your whole life, been around church, and your granddad was a pastor?
He was, yeah. So not my whole life, but a large part of it, right? So if I look back, you were talking about your story last week, which thank you for sharing, by the way. It was incredibly meaningful to hear where you've come from, where you've been, and what you've done. And I think we may have alluded to this a little bit last week, but we're pretty much the polar opposite of each other.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's interesting that we're here at the same place, but we've come from different backgrounds. So when I was really a kid, I was 7 years old, when I first saw, the need in my life for a savior. You're like, wow, 7 years old, how bad can you be, right? I mean, there's not a whole lot you can do at 7 years old. Now, this is in the 70s, right? So today, a lot of things are different, right?
Yeah, very different. Yeah,
I mean, how many times can you really act up watching the Super Friends on Saturday morning or, doing stuff like that?
There is no social media or anything to post bad stuff or...
Exactly. And to your point, you mentioned my granddad. He was a minister.
Okay.
And I don't remember a time in my family when we really weren't in church. So looking back on that, I know that I was in church a lot. So I heard a lot of the gospel being preached, growing up.
Okay.
And even though you're young, I heard what man's condition is, right, in front of a holy God, and knew even at a very young age that there was a gap there, that there was nothing I could do to bridge that gap, and that's when I understood the need for a savior, right? So you fast forward from that, again, you're a kid. The 70s were a lot nicer time, I guess, compared to what people are facing today.
A lot less dangerous time, for sure.
A lot less dangerous time, but growing up, eventually you get to the point where you're a teenager and you're like, I don't really know if I believe this or not, right? Mm-hmm. And you have opportunities to do things that are not in line with what God wants you to do. Let's put it to you that way. And seeing some of those experiences, nothing as really extreme at any point, but was able to see when I was probably a 14-year-old, something like that, that God really has a plan for people's lives. Okay. So I started, really getting a lot more serious about faith and things in general at that time. So it's been a long time.
It's been a year or two, huh?
You were asking. I had to like almost break out my calculator. So I think I've been a Christian now for about 46 years.
Wow.
So I'm an old man.
Wow.
Now I wish I could say that I was 46 years old, spiritually mature, but that's not the case, right?
And that's very different. That's a very different age, and yes, yeah.
Yeah, but going through high school, going through college, I didn't have a lot of wild stuff that I was doing because I had the relationship with God. I knew what was expected in that relationship not because, you're told you have to do certain things, but, when you have that relationship with Christ, there's that innate desire that you want to do things that are going to be pleasing to Him. You're not going to do things that displease Him, right?
Right.
Has no impact on your standing because you're forgiven. God's a forgiving God. Everyone sins.
Yep.
You're able to be forgiven of that, but you don't want to be in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people look at following Christ like that as, like you said, something to be afraid of or being told you have to do. But it's kind of like with a good parent, you don't want to disappoint them.
Right.
You want to do what's expected of you, and you want to do the right thing, so to say.
Yeah. Yeah. So, coming up, grew up, got married, Amanda and I, back in 93. So we'll have been married 32 years this year.
Wow.
That's been a,
Kudos to Amanda.
Yeah, exactly. That's where the credit goes for putting up with a whole lot. And again, a husband who's not mature as his age is, right?
Well,
but then again, who among us is?
right, and you're much further along than some of us.
I don't know about that. Don't let the lack of hair confuse you for maturity or anything like that. But we, even after we were married, we were involved in our church and have got to do a lot of really special things over the years in the church, right? So have been taught a lot of Sunday school classes to all different ages. When I was in college, actually taught littler kids, and then eventually we helped teach a college and career group, which we still have incredible friends that came out of that. Some of whom are not with us anymore, which is sad, but that's how it is.
That's part of life sometimes.
Yeah, it really is. But,
especially as we get older, that seems to be much more prevalent.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
But after that, we lived in Atlanta for a little while, so we got immediately plugged into a church over there. Served as a deacon in a church over there, and then we wound up coming back over here. And we've now been at our home church for the math is easy. It's 26 years because I know how old my oldest son is.
Oh yeah,
and he was born right after we joined that.
Nice,
the church there.
That makes it easy.
So yeah, have done a lot of different things, and I look back over those years, and I've seen times where I've been drawn closer to God through Him drawing through activities we've been able to get plugged into, and unfortunately, I have times where I moved in the opposite direction. But there's this old song that I listen to, and by the way, let me tell you. So I again was a teenager during the '80s, the greatest musical decade of our time, as many people will say.
Yes.
But I listened to a lot of also Christian music during that time, and there's some noteworthy songs in there, but there's also a lot of hot garbage. And looking back at some of the stuff I listened to, but there's one song that talks about no matter how far you've strayed, you've gone away from the Father, it's one step back, right? It's like the story of the prodigal son.
Yeah.
Where the father is waiting on the son, waiting for him to return, goes out and reaches out to him, runs to him, right? And brings him back.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks nowadays, they feel like they're so far, like they've sinned so much and done so much wrong that there's no way Jesus will forgive them and take them back. And like you said, it's one step. Just turn around. He's right there.
Yeah.
Just turn around and talk to him, pray to him, and he'll lead you where you need to be. And so in all that time, how would you say that your faith has changed your life as far as how, has it guided your path professionally as well as personally, or?
That's an interesting question. That's a good one. There have been things that I tried to do without really clear guidance from God, I think. Amanda and I came very close to moving to Knoxville. Okay. Actually, I lived up there for about 2 to 3 months, right? And we were on the verge of moving up there. And that was just a step in the wrong direction for us. So looking back, as I was starting to really draw closer to God and try to find out really what the plan is for life and everything, and what the right steps are, there were times that I also actually contemplated, is God calling me to go to seminary or something like that? And in fact, I was pretty clear at one time that was what was going to happen. And it never materialized, right? Because in my mind, at that time, and this is the wrong thing to be thinking, but my thought was, man, if I'm going to serve God, this is the only way I can do it. I've got to be a pastor, a music minister.
Yeah, right.
And those guys do fantastic jobs. But what I didn't realize, and what it took several years for me to really click, was that everyday people are just as much of a minister as those people are. And that's not to, take away from those, because many of the people I know and love, they're in that vocation. They do a fantastic job.
Yeah, absolutely.
But God has a calling for them specifically for that. And in fact, this past week, I told you the story last time we talked about our friend that was, she wound up passing away, right?
Yes, yes.
And we went to her funeral this past Monday. I got a chance to talk to her husband actually today. And at that service, her two daughters spoke about her mom.
Okay.
And then her husband got up and spoke. There is no way that I could do that, that many days after losing, Amanda or the boys. But he said something that really stuck out to me. And he talked about when she was so sick, how she was ministering to other people. And really, she was a minister. Right. She never went to seminary. Neither one of us have been to seminary. But she, in her everyday life, she talked about what God had done for her, even when she was incredibly sick, how much her faith was in God, that even if things, if she wound up passing away, that she should be in a better place.
Right.
And the fact that she was a minister without being a minister, quote unquote minister, that sunk into my life. That I could I saw that for the first time. That's why I was able, I served at our church in Marietta. I served, here at church, doing it in a couple different ways here at Hunter Street.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, as you say, not being a minister, quote unquote, but just being an average guy, it's easier for us to bring some folks that are not anti the church, but just don't know anything about God, or maybe they have had a bad experience with the church and they're, I don't want to go to church, but they'll be your friend.
Yeah.
And it's how you live your life, and maybe you throw that little bit in there and kind of interest them. And I think it's important that the fruits of your life show that you are a follower of Christ.
Yeah. And that's not always easy. I mean, look, if you check the fruit on my tree, half of it's going to be rotten. There is no way that you can look at all the fruit, but I hope, and it's not by anything I'm doing, right? It's all God's doing, and God's grace and God's mercy and growing and allowing certain things to bloom, that hopefully I say something to someone that makes them think about their relationship with God, or where they are, what they need to do, or gives them insight in something they want to do. So that's really the idea about being used that way.
Right. And just, and letting them know that it's okay if they have a question, maybe they're certainly not going to go to the pastor of some church that they don't go to, but they'll go to, Brian and go, hey man, I just, I was thinking about this, and how does that, work out spiritually?
Yeah.
And that's where we're called as just ordinary people.
Yep.
To talk about, our extraordinary God.
Yeah. I had this vision, this thought, definitely not a vision or anything like that, right? I had this thought, I guess it's been 10 years or so ago, right? I was watching something on not late night TV, but, something that Discovery Channel or something like that. Mm-hmm. And they had like the great sculptors of Greece, Rome, or whatever it is. And then they were talking about sculptors today. And there's something that just dawned on me that day, that I watched this guy, right, and he's got his hammer, he's got this big chunk of marble, and he's got chisels that are laying there. And you'll see him, and he'll, pick one up, and he'll tap, 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 picks up another one, tap, tap, tap. And sometimes you'll see little things fly. Sometimes you see big pieces fly, right? For some reason, I had this thought. Whether it's right or not, no analogy is perfect when it comes to spiritual things. But I had this thought. What if I'm just the chisel? I don't know the sculpture that God is painting or they're making in someone else's life.
Right.
And he's got the hammer. And I don't know if he's going to hit the tap for a little piece of marble to fly off.
Yep.
Or if the time he taps that I'm going to be involved in, it's going to tap and there's this huge chunk that's going to fly off. And it's going to impact somebody where they might see God for the first time. I don't know that. All I have to do is be faithful to be the chisel. So whether that's telling them about what God has done in my life, reflecting what, just things that are occurring, right? Or just telling them the gospel itself. Again, we're ordinary people. God's the extraordinary God. He's the one that's shaping all these things.
That's an awesome analogy. I love that. That's awesome.
It stuck with me, and I try to remember that sometimes. And by the way, chisels are just stupid tools. There's nothing.
Yeah, they're just a chunk of steel.
There's no power on it. Yeah. There's no button. Everything that's done comes from the sculptor's hand.
Yep.
And that's all I have to remember is I just have to be faithful to do what God has called me to do in my life, and with my family, not always perfect, with my wife, not always perfect, and with the church.
Yeah, yeah, and raising kids.
That's a challenge.
That is such a challenge. That is a huge challenge. You have two, I have one. I couldn't even imagine two. Good luck to you.
So I was joking with a friend that he is expecting his third, and as I told him, it's like, when we had our first, it was double coverage.
Yeah.
Then we had two, and it's man to man. Man, when you get three or more and you're in zone defense, I don't know how you do that.
And I guess after three, you just drop into prevent.
I guess.
Try to guard the goal line and keep everybody back.
I think prevent has a totally different context there. That's good.
Oh, wow.
That's
we're kind of straight there. But,
that's what post is for.
Well, no, I think that's okay. I think that's the whole point of this podcast is we're not theologians.
Dude.
We're not sitting here trying to tell you all these great things that we have learned and teach you. And we're just two guys that God has used to put here so that maybe we can reach someone out there and bring them closer to God.
Yeah.
And
the world is, the world, the body of believers, universal church, it's made up of ordinary people. It always has been.
Yeah.
There have been, phenomenal theologians that have come around, but there's just a lot of common, ordinary folks that are just letting the gospel impact their daily lives in everything it's due. It's not that they have their Sunday, we go to church, we do this, and then I do what I want to do the rest of the week. It's going to impact everything I do during the week. And that's when I think we're probably the most impacted.
Yeah.
And really, I'm kind of excited to go down this road because I want to hear other people's stories.
Yeah, exactly. That I can't wait for that. That's going to be awesome. I can't wait to hear other people's stories. And I'm amazed at the power of God every time I sit down and think about what he's done just in my life. And I can't wait to hear the stories that other people with probably more interesting lives than me that, how he has moved in their lives. That's going to be just awesome.
Well, definitely more interesting lives than me, I think. But the one thing I would say, if you're listening to this podcast and you're interested in sharing your story with us or using this as a vehicle to get your story out to other people, we would love to hear your story and we'd love to help you share it. We have a website that's actually set up, and Shane, you've been doing a great job on all the social media stuff and all the stuff that you're posting out there. But the website is kind of old school. If you want to contact us, you can always comment back on.
On one of the social media posts. Yeah.
What are you, Instagram? Is it Twitter or X? What do we call it now?
I don't know. I didn't realize Facebook. We had a tweeter thing until just the other day.
we do have that. So obviously you can post DM on that or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you want to kind of submit a little synopsis about the story, it's the tellmeaboutyourjesus.com. Go there. There's a form you can fill out, and we'd love to get your story.
Or if you just want to send us a comment or, hey, if you just want to tell us we're no good at this, that's okay. We got thick skin. We're okay with it.
Well, yep, exactly.
Whatever you got, just throw it our way. And we are now live on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, iHeart.
One or two others that they're escaping. YouTube. We're actually having
have a YouTube channel.
Yep.
We will eventually probably put a little video with it. Right now it's just audio.
Two faces made for radio or audio.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll be on there.
Yeah, we'll wear a mask for you. Don't worry.
We're gonna have to figure out a way to get the shine off my bald head. Otherwise, it's just gonna be a glow.
Like some baby powder or something on there.
I don't know what we do, man. We gotta do something.
Okay, so if you're a bald guy and you're out there and you know how to get the shine off your head, tellmeaboutyourjesus.com. Send Brian some help here.
Brad does need help. Thank you. Hey, so I think we're getting kind of close to wrapping up here, but I want to ask you, since I didn't mean for this to be all about me talking the whole time, but tell me something. I mean, this week, I'm going to put you on the spot. This week, what have you seen in your life where you can look at it and go, you know what? I can really see the hand of God in this, or something God's taught you through something you're reading or watching or listening to.
I think a lot of it, as I think Brian mentioned last week, we're reading through the Bible in a chronological study, a 1 year Bible, and we've been doing a lot of Leviticus, and that's where God is speaking to Moses and kind of laying down, this is how I want you to do things, and the detail and the precision and the exactness that the Lord is asking for from Moses and the Israelites and everybody. It's so, like I said to Brian, I hope Moses is writing this down, because it's like, holy cow, you're going to do this 7 times, and you're going to do that 7 times, and you're going to put blood on the right ear and the right big toe, and it's just, it's awesome that a God that powerful with so much to worry about is going to focus on those details. That has to be so detailed, and it shows where we kind of fail. Because if you look at the world today, we're not really doing a lot of that stuff.
I think it shows a difference in trying to do stuff on your own versus
Yes.
grace.
Yes, we're kind of, we just kind of bumble through sometimes and do the best we can. And the greatest part about that is God is like, okay, you're trying. He'll forgive you. He'll give you that grace if you just go to him and be like, hey, I'm trying. I'm doing everything I can. If you have that relationship with God, I think you can just use his grace to cover up some of your mistakes.
Be forgiven of your mistakes. I think
Yes.
that's what
Thank
you're,
you.
what
Yes.
you're looking for.
Yes, sorry.
Yep. Anyways,
I got off the track there.
it's all good. It's all good.
So if you're listening to this before February 27th, we will be on local talk radio, 99.5, 99.5.
The Birmingham, Alabama area.
Yes, Birmingham, Central Alabama area, with Breaking Bread. And we will be on there talking about the podcast and hanging out. And
6 p.m.
6 p.m. to 7, I think, is their time slot. And I'm not sure if we're going to be on there the whole time, but you should probably listen the whole time anyway. So
I'm sure they would appreciate that too.
I know. I'm trying to throw them a little dig there. I appreciate it. So, all right, we'll wrap up here. We appreciate everybody joining us on this episode. And
yeah, one thing I do want to say, we got great responses off the first episode that dropped. Hopefully the audio quality is a lot better this time. We don't have a dog coming in the middle of this time, which, hey, that's great.
We'll put up a gate.
But yeah, exactly. But thank you all for all your comments and your feedback. We do appreciate that.
Yes, absolutely. We appreciate everybody. And just continue to share it out there and try to get us out and about, not for our gain or our glory, but just for God. We want to get his word out there to everybody we can and his stories. Thank everybody for joining us today. We will hopefully see you next time on the next episode. Remember, God is faithful, and we'll see y'all then.